My name is Imam Hassan, and for as long as I can remember, my life has been devoted to the service of Allah and my community. Faith has always been the foundation of my existence, the compass guiding my every decision and action. From the time I was a boy, I believed that my purpose in this world was clear: to live a life of worship, to follow the teachings of the Quran, and to serve as a humble servant of the Almighty. That singular purpose shaped me, defined me, and gave my life meaning. Or at least, that's what I thought. I grew up in a small, close-knit village where Islam was not just a religion but a way of life. It was woven into the very fabric of our days, from the call to prayer at dawn to the quiet recitation of verses before sleep. My father was a deeply devout man, and my mother's gentle guidance taught me the beauty and compassion that Islam encompasses. As a child, I was drawn to the Quran, its words resonating in my heart even before I fully understood their meaning. The verses felt alive, sacred, and filled with wisdom beyond my years. I spent countless hours memorizing them, finding solace and purpose in their rhythm and meaning. For me, the Quran wasn't just a holy book, it was the most important thing in my life, a lifeline that connected me to Allah. As I grew older, my devotion only deepened. My parents encouraged me to pursue religious studies, and I embraced the opportunity with all my heart. I spent years immersed in the teachings of Islam, studying the Quran, the Hadith, and the lives of the prophets. The more I learned, the more I felt called to serve. By the time I became an imam, I was certain of my path. I saw myself as a shepherd for my flock, guiding them with humility and care, helping them navigate life's challenges through the wisdom of our faith. I believed I was fulfilling the role Allah had chosen for me. For many years, I followed every teaching of Islam with sincerity, striving to live a life that would be pleasing to Allah. I devoted myself to prayer, fasting, and the principles of charity and compassion. I counseled those who sought my help, celebrated alongside my community in times of joy, and mourned with them in times of loss. My faith was my anchor, my guide, my everything. But as time went on, something began to shift within me. A question, faint and unwelcome, started to take root in my mind. Were my prayers truly sincere, or had they become empty words spoken out of obligation? I tried to dismiss the thought, but it lingered, unsettling me. The unease grew stronger, a quiet but persistent voice in the back of my mind. I began to fear that I was losing myself in the process of devotion, that my heart was no longer fully present in my worship. I carried out the rituals, but they felt hollow, as though something vital was missing. This realization terrified me. How could I, a servant of Allah, feel disconnected from the very faith that defined me? I pushed the doubts aside, burying them beneath layers of responsibility and routine, but they refused to stay hidden. I respected all religions and valued the diversity of faiths in the world, but I had always believed that Islam was the one true path to God. It was the foundation of my identity, the lens through which I viewed the world. Yet, despite this conviction, I couldn't ignore the growing anxiety that plagued me. My dreams became increasingly disturbing, filled with shadows and questions I couldn't answer. I woke each morning with a heaviness in my chest, unable to shake the feeling that something profound was shifting within me. The darkness I felt was not just an absence, it was a presence, an emptiness that consumed me from within. It was as though a void had opened up in my soul, threatening to swallow everything I believed in. I couldn't explain it, but I felt that something horrible was approaching, an event that would change everything. At the same time, I began to sense that the world itself was unwell, that hatred and division were poisoning the very fabric of faith. I felt as though my belief was being tested in ways I had never imagined. One day, overwhelmed by these emotions, I went to the mosque to pray. I sought solace in the one place that had always been a sanctuary for me. Kneeling on the prayer mat, I poured out my heart to Allah, begging for clarity, for guidance, for peace. In that moment, the mosque was my refuge, the only place where I felt a glimmer of comfort. But as I prayed, an explosion tore through the air, shaking the very ground beneath me. A bomb had detonated, and I was thrown to the floor. The sound of screams and chaos surrounded me, and when I opened my eyes, I saw blood and pain everywhere. I realized, with a chilling certainty, that my life was coming to an end. As I lay there, fading in and out of consciousness, I felt myself drifting away from my body. A profound sense of calm washed over me, a peace unlike anything I had ever experienced. The pain and chaos around me seemed to fade into the background as I found myself watching the scene from above. My body lay motionless on the floor, and I observed it with a strange detachment, as though I were watching a movie. I felt calm, but also a deep sadness at leaving the world behind. At the same time, I felt free, as though the burdens of life had been lifted from my soul. A light appeared before me, unlike anything I had ever seen. It was not just bright, it was alive, radiating warmth, compassion, and an overwhelming sense of love. The light seemed to call to me, drawing me closer with an undeniable pull. All my fears began to melt away as I moved toward it, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I felt ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. As I approached the light, I found myself traveling through a tunnel, my spirit being cleansed with every step. It was as though I was being prepared for something extraordinary, something beyond comprehension. When I reached the source of the light, I saw him, Jesus. He stood before me, more beautiful and powerful than I could have ever imagined. His presence was overwhelming, not in a way that inspired fear, but in a way that filled me with awe. His love was limitless, wrapping around me like a warm embrace. Jesus didn't speak with words, but with an understanding that pierced the very core of my soul. He knew everything about me, every thought, every doubt, every fear, and yet, he loved me completely. His gaze was one of pure compassion, and it felt as though he was healing every wound I had ever carried. Then, without speaking, he conveyed a message that changed everything. You have served God through Islam, but I am the way, the truth, and the life. Through me, you will find true peace and joy. Jesus revealed to me that salvation is not something that can be earned through devotion or deeds. It is a gift, freely given through grace. He showed me his life, his teachings, his suffering, his sacrifice, and I realized that everything he endured was for me and for all of humanity. He said, I took your sins and imperfections upon myself. I offer you forgiveness, freely, through my love. His words filled me with a sense of release, as though a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying had been lifted. Jesus explained that true faith is not found in rigid rules or rituals, but in a personal relationship with him. He wanted to be my friend, my guide, my savior. He showed me a vision of heaven, a place of unimaginable love and joy, where I would one day be united with God. It was a gift meant for everyone, regardless of their past. But he also showed me a place of darkness, a result of rejecting his love, not a punishment from God. It was a sobering reminder that the choices we make have eternal consequences. Jesus spoke of love, forgiveness, and understanding. He emphasized that his message was not about hatred or division, but about unity and compassion. He said, my love is for all, and it doesn't distinguish between people. Everyone matters to me. His words shattered every barrier I had built in my mind, opening my heart to a new understanding of faith. Jesus then gave me a mission. Your near-death experience is a sign of my love. Use this love to heal and unite the world. You are now mine. He called me to lay down my fears and embrace his grace, to trust in his plan for my life. He revealed that my purpose extended beyond the mosque, that I was to carry this message to all who were ready to hear it. He promised that I would never be alone, that he would guide and protect me every step of the way. Jesus showed me that my calling was to build bridges between faiths, to be an instrument of his peace. He said, you must be a light in the world. Carry my word and shine. I understood that everything I thought I knew was about to change. Jesus reminded me that my strength did not lie in my devotion but in my faith in him. He showed me that through him, there was forgiveness and freedom, and that his mercy was limitless. As the light began to fade, I felt myself being drawn back to my body. My work was just beginning, but I knew with certainty that I would never again walk alone. When I opened my eyes, I was alive. My body ached, and the chaos around me was overwhelming, but my heart was at peace. I had been given a second chance, and I knew it was for a reason. As I recovered in the hospital, I felt an unshakable determination to share my story. I began to speak about Jesus, about his love and grace, about the transformation that had taken place in my heart. Some people were skeptical, others confused, but I trusted that Jesus would guide me. I have devoted my life to spreading the message of his love, to building bridges between communities and faiths. My mission is no longer confined to one place or one group of people. It is for everyone, because his love is for everyone. This is my story, my calling, and my purpose. And with Jesus by my side, I walk forward in faith, ready to shine his light in the world. This newfound purpose has shaped every moment of my life since that day. When I returned to my community, I knew that the path ahead would not be simple. The transformation I experienced was profound, but I also understood that sharing it with others, especially those who had known me as Imam Hassan, would be a delicate and often challenging process. At first, I struggled to find the words to explain what had happened. How could I convey the enormity of what I had seen and felt? How could I describe the unconditional love of Jesus, the overwhelming peace of his presence, to those who might see my experience as a betrayal of the faith I had dedicated my life to? The weight of these questions pressed heavily on me, but I held on to the promise Jesus had made, that I would never walk this path alone. His love and guidance were my constant companions. I began by speaking to those closest to me, friends and family members who had always supported me. Sitting with them, I recounted the events of that day, the explosion, the near-death experience, the encounter with Jesus. Some listened with open hearts, while others met my words with skepticism or even anger. I could see the conflict in their eyes, a mixture of confusion, fear, and concern. But I also saw flickers of curiosity, moments when they couldn't help but wonder if there was something more to what I was saying. One of the most difficult conversations I had was with my father. A devout Muslim, he had always been proud of my dedication to Islam and my role as an imam. When I told him about my experience, his face hardened and his voice trembled with emotion. "Hassan," he said, "what you're saying goes against everything we believe. How can you turn your back on your faith, on your family, on everything we've taught you?" His words cut deeply, but I met his gaze with compassion. "Father," I said, "I am not turning my back on you or on the foundation you gave me. I am following a truth that was revealed to me in a way I cannot deny. This is not about rejecting Islam, it's about embracing the love and grace of Jesus, who showed me that salvation is a gift for all of us." Our conversation was long and tearful, and though my father didn't fully understand or accept my experience, he saw the sincerity in my eyes. "I don't agree with you," he finally said, "but I see that you believe this with all your heart. I will pray for you, Hassan, that Allah guides you back to the right path." His words stayed with me, not as a condemnation but as a reminder of the love and devotion that had always been at the center of our relationship. They also strengthened my resolve to approach every conversation with humility and patience, understanding that transformation is a process, not an instant revelation. As I began sharing my story more widely, I encountered a range of reactions. Some people were moved by my sincerity and the depth of my experience, while others accused me of betrayal, of abandoning the faith I had once championed. There were days when the criticism felt overwhelming, when I questioned whether I was strong enough to carry out the mission Jesus had given me. But in those moments, I turned to prayer, seeking his guidance and reassurance. And every time, I felt his presence, a quiet but unwavering reminder that I was not alone. One of the most unexpected blessings of this journey has been the connections I've formed with people from all walks of life. Christians, Muslims, atheists, and those searching for meaning have all reached out to me, drawn by the message of love and unity that I now carry. Through conversations, public talks, and small acts of kindness, I've had the privilege of witnessing lives touched and hearts opened. Each encounter reminds me of the limitless power of Jesus' love. Over time, I've come to see my role not as a preacher of conversion but as a bridge builder, someone who can help others see the beauty and truth in love, forgiveness, and grace. I've worked to foster dialogue between different faith communities, emphasizing the common values that unite us rather than the differences that divide us. In these moments of connection, I've felt the presence of Jesus most strongly, guiding me to be a light in the world. One of the most profound experiences of my journey happened during a visit to a church. I was invited to share my story with the congregation, a diverse group of people who welcomed me with open arms. As I stood before them, I felt a wave of emotion, a mixture of gratitude and awe at how far I had come. I spoke from the heart, recounting my near-death experience and the transformative love of Jesus. When I finished, there was a moment of silence, followed by a standing ovation. People came up to me afterward, sharing their own stories of faith, doubt, and redemption. It was a powerful reminder that we are all on a journey, and that Jesus meets each of us exactly where we are. Despite these moments of encouragement, there have also been challenges. Some members of my former community have distanced themselves from me, unable to accept the changes in my life. I've faced criticism and even threats from those who see my story as a betrayal of Islam. These experiences have tested my faith, but they have also deepened it. In every trial, I felt the strength of Jesus, His love shielding me from despair and renewing my resolve to continue His work. As I look back on the events that brought me to this point, I am filled with a sense of awe at the way God works in our lives. What began as a moment of unimaginable tragedy, a bomb that could have ended my life, became the catalyst for a transformation that has given my life new meaning. Through Jesus, I have found a peace and joy that surpass anything I could have imagined, and I am committed to sharing that gift with others. Today, my mission is clear. I strive to live each day as a testament to the love and grace of Jesus, to be a beacon of hope in a world that so often feels divided and broken. I continue to share my story, not to convince or convert, but to inspire and invite. My hope is that through my words and actions, others might come to see the beauty of a life lived in relationship with Jesus and the boundless love that He offers to everyone. This journey has been anything but easy, but it has been worth every step. I know that there will be more challenges ahead, but I face them with confidence, knowing that Jesus walks beside me. His love has transformed me, and it continues to transform the world, one heart at a time. And so, I move forward, not with fear, but with faith, ready to shine His light wherever He leads me. Each new day brings with it both challenges and opportunities. My journey since that fateful day has been one of constant learning, growth, and faith. While I once thought my purpose was limited to guiding my community within the framework of Islam, I now understand that my calling is far greater. It is to bring people together under the universal truth of love, forgiveness, and grace. This mission transcends religious boundaries, and though it is not always easy, it is one that fills my heart with peace. One of the most difficult lessons I've had to learn is patience. Not everyone is ready to hear my story, and not everyone can accept the transformation I've undergone. For many, my encounter with Jesus represents a direct challenge to their beliefs, and I understand their hesitation. After all, I once held those same convictions, firmly rooted in the teachings I had followed since childhood. But I also know that Jesus meets each person in their own time, in their own way. My role is not to force understanding, but to plant seeds of love and truth, trusting that God will nurture them in His perfect timing. There are moments when I feel the weight of rejection, especially from those I once considered my closest friends. Some have turned their backs on me entirely, unwilling to engage in dialogue or even acknowledge my presence. Others have approached me with anger, accusing me of abandoning my faith and betraying my heritage. These encounters are painful, but they have also taught me the importance of compassion. I try to see the fear and confusion behind their words, to respond not with defensiveness but with understanding. I remind myself that I, too, was once resistant to anything that challenged my worldview. It is only through love that hearts can be softened and minds opened. Despite these challenges, there have been countless moments of grace that reaffirm my purpose. One such moment occurred during a visit to a small interfaith gathering. The event brought together individuals from various religious backgrounds, Muslims, Christians, Jews, Hindus, and others, to discuss the common values that unite us. I was invited to share my story, and though I felt nervous, I knew this was an opportunity to build bridges. As I spoke, I could see the expressions of the people in the room shift from skepticism to curiosity, and eventually, to empathy. By the time I finished, there was a sense of connection that transcended our differences. Several attendees approached me afterward, thanking me for my honesty and sharing their own struggles with faith and identity. It was a powerful reminder that love and understanding have the ability to break down even the most deeply entrenched barriers. Another unforgettable experience was meeting a young man named Omar, who had been wrestling with doubts about his faith. He approached me after one of my talks, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "Imam Hassan," he said hesitantly, "I've been questioning my beliefs for a long time, but I've been too afraid to say anything. Hearing your story gives me hope that maybe it's okay to ask questions, to seek something deeper." I placed a hand on his shoulder and smiled. "Omar," I said, "faith is not the absence of questions, it is the courage to seek answers. God is not afraid of your doubts, and neither should you be. Keep searching, and trust that He will lead you to the truth." We continued to talk for hours, and over time, Omar began to open up about his struggles and fears. Though his journey is his own, I feel blessed to have been a small part of it. Moments like these remind me that my calling is not about changing others, but about walking alongside them as they discover the truth for themselves. As my story has spread, I've had the privilege of connecting with people from all over the world. Some reach out to share how my experience has resonated with them, while others ask questions about faith, salvation, and the love of Jesus. These conversations are deeply humbling, as they remind me of the universal longing for connection and meaning that unites us all. I've come to see my journey not as an isolated event, but as part of a larger tapestry, one in which each thread represents a life touched by God's grace. One of the most surprising aspects of this journey has been the way it has deepened my appreciation for the faith of my upbringing. While my encounter with Jesus has transformed my understanding of God, it has also given me a new perspective on the beauty and wisdom of Islam. I see now that my years of devotion, study, and service were not in vain. They were a preparation for the path I now walk. The Quranic teachings of compassion, charity, and humility are not at odds with the message of Jesus. They are complementary, pointing to the same ultimate truth, that God is love. This realization has fueled my passion for interfaith dialogue. I believe that the divisions between religions are often the result of misunderstanding and fear, rather than irreconcilable differences. By sharing my story, I hope to show that it is possible to honor the traditions we come from while embracing the transformative power of Jesus' love. My goal is not to erase differences, but to celebrate the common ground that unites us as children of God. One of the most profound challenges I've faced is learning to let go of control. There are times when I feel overwhelmed by the enormity of the mission Jesus has entrusted to me. I wonder if I am strong enough, wise enough, or brave enough to fulfill His calling. But in those moments of doubt, I am reminded of His words, "You are not alone. I will guide you, protect you, and strengthen you." These promises sustain me, giving me the courage to take each step forward, even when the path ahead is unclear. As I reflect on my journey, I am struck by the way it has transformed not only my understanding of God, but also my relationships with others. I've learned to see people not through the lens of labels or categories, but as individuals, each uniquely loved by God. This perspective has allowed me to approach even the most difficult conversations with empathy and grace. It has also deepened my capacity for forgiveness, both toward others and toward myself. I now understand that forgiveness is not just an act, it is a way of living, a reflection of the boundless mercy Jesus has shown me. Looking to the future, I am filled with hope. The world may be divided, but I believe that love has the power to heal even the deepest wounds. My mission is to be a vessel for that love, to share it with everyone I encounter, regardless of their background or beliefs. I know that the road ahead will not always be easy, but I also know that I am not walking it alone. Jesus is with me, guiding my steps and lighting the way. And so, I move forward, one day at a time, carrying the message of grace and love that has transformed my life. I do not know what lies ahead, but I trust in the plan that God has for me. My story is not my own, it is His, written through my life so that others might come to know the truth of His love. With every word I speak and every act of kindness I offer, I am reminded of the incredible gift I have been given, a second chance to live, to love, and to serve. And for that, I will forever be grateful. As the days turned into months and the months into years, my life took on a rhythm that was both familiar and entirely new. The routines I had known so well as an imam, prayer, teaching, and community service remained, but they were now infused with a deeper purpose. Everything I did was a reflection of the love and grace I had experienced in my encounter with Jesus. My heart, once weighed down by doubts and fears, now overflowed with a sense of peace and joy that I could not contain. I felt compelled to share this gift with others, to let them know that this love was not reserved for a select few, but was available to everyone. One of the most profound changes in my life was the way I approached my relationships. Where before I had often felt the pressure to guide, correct, or teach, I now felt a freedom to simply love. This shift was especially evident in my interactions with those who disagreed with me or challenged my beliefs. Instead of seeing these conversations as debates to be won, I began to view them as opportunities to listen, to understand, and to plant seeds of love. I discovered that when I approached others with humility and sincerity, walls began to crumble and hearts began to open. One particularly memorable encounter occurred during a community event where I had been invited to speak. After sharing my story, a man approached me with visible anger. "You've betrayed us," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "You were a leader, someone we looked up to, and now you've turned your back on everything we stand for." His words stung, but I met his gaze with compassion. "I have not turned my back on you," I said gently. "I am still the same person who cares deeply for this community. My journey has led me to a new understanding of God's love, but that doesn't mean I've abandoned the values we share. I want to build bridges, not walls." For a moment, he looked at me with suspicion, but then his expression softened. "I don't understand what you've experienced," he admitted, "but I can see that you believe it with all your heart. Maybe there's something I can learn from you." That moment was a small victory, not because I had convinced him to agree with me, but because we had found common ground. It was a reminder that love and understanding have the power to transcend even the deepest divisions. My work soon began to extend beyond my immediate community. Invitations to speak at interfaith events, universities, and churches became more frequent, and though I sometimes felt unworthy of the attention, I knew that this was part of the mission Jesus had given me. Each opportunity to share my story was a chance to reach someone who might be searching for hope, for meaning, for the love that only Jesus can provide. One of the most surprising invitations came from a Christian pastor who had heard about my story through mutual acquaintances. He invited me to speak at his church, a large congregation in a bustling city far from my hometown. Standing on that stage, looking out at hundreds of unfamiliar faces, I felt a wave of nervousness. But as I began to speak, the nerves melted away, replaced by a sense of purpose and peace. I told them about my journey, about the explosion that had nearly taken my life, and about the moment I met Jesus. I spoke of his love, his grace, and the way he had transformed my understanding of faith. When I finished, there was a moment of silence, and then the room erupted in applause. People approached me afterward, some with tears in their eyes, thanking me for sharing my story. One woman said, "I've been struggling with my faith for years, but hearing you speak has reminded me of the power of Jesus' love." Thank you. Encounters like these filled me with gratitude, but they also reminded me of the responsibility I carried. I was not just telling my story, I was inviting others to experience the same transformation I had undergone. It was a humbling and sacred task, one that I approached with prayer and dependence on Jesus' guidance. As my message spread, so did the challenges. There were those who sought to discredit me, accusing me of fabricating my story for attention or financial gain. Some even went so far as to threaten me, warning me to stop speaking about Jesus. These moments tested my faith, but they also deepened it. I remembered Jesus' words, "In this world, you will have trouble. But take heart. I have overcome the world," John 16 verse 33. Those words became a source of strength and comfort, reminding me that no matter what opposition I faced, I was never alone. One of the most difficult aspects of my journey has been navigating the expectations of those who look to me for guidance. Some see me as a bridge between faiths, someone who can foster understanding and unity in a divided world. Others see me as a missionary, someone whose sole purpose is to lead others to Christ. While I value both perspectives, I have come to realize that my true calling is to simply live out the love and grace of Jesus in every interaction. Whether that means sharing the gospel explicitly or simply showing kindness and compassion, I trust that God will use me in the way He sees fit. My personal life has also undergone significant changes. Relationships that once felt unshakable have been tested, while new connections have blossomed in unexpected ways. One of the greatest joys has been finding a community of believers who have embraced me with open arms. Their support and encouragement have been a source of strength, reminding me that I am part of a larger family, one that spans cultures, languages, and traditions. Through it all, one truth has remained constant: the love of Jesus is limitless, transformative, and available to everyone. This truth has become the foundation of my life, the lens through which I see the world. It has changed the way I approach every conversation, every challenge, and every opportunity. It has given me a sense of purpose that goes beyond anything I could have imagined. As I write this, I am filled with gratitude for the journey that has brought me to this point. There is still so much work to be done, so many lives to touch, so many hearts to reach. But I am not afraid. I know that Jesus walks beside me, guiding my steps and giving me the strength to carry out His mission. My story is far from over, and I am excited to see where this path will lead. To anyone reading this, I want you to know that the love of Jesus is not reserved for a select few. It is for you, just as it is for me. No matter where you are in your journey, no matter what doubts or fears you carry, His arms are open wide, waiting to embrace you. All you have to do is take that first step, to open your heart and let His love transform you. It is a journey that will challenge you, change you, and fill you with a peace that surpasses understanding. This is my story, but it is also yours. It is the story of a love that knows no boundaries, of a grace that cannot be earned but is freely given. It is the story of a Savior who calls each of us by name, inviting us to walk with Him into a life of purpose, joy, and eternal hope. And for that, I will forever be grateful. The journey has not just been one of external encounters and shared stories, it has also been deeply internal, a continual transformation of my heart and soul. Every day, I find myself reflecting on the path that Jesus has set before me and the many ways in which His love continues to reshape who I am. It is a process of unlearning, relearning, and surrendering, of laying down the old fears, insecurities, and misconceptions that once held me back. In their place, I have found freedom, a lightness of being that comes from fully trusting in Jesus' plan for my life. One of the most profound aspects of this transformation has been the way it has allowed me to see others through new eyes. Where I once might have judged or labeled someone based on their beliefs, actions, or words, I now strive to see them as Jesus sees them, as beloved children of God. This shift has opened the door to conversations and connections I never would have imagined possible. It has allowed me to approach even the most difficult relationships with compassion, knowing that every person I encounter is on their own journey, shaped by their own struggles and experiences. There was a moment that crystallized this for me, a chance meeting with a man named Elias. I was traveling for one of my speaking engagements and had stopped at a small cafe for a quick meal. As I sat quietly, preparing my notes, I noticed Elias sitting across the room, his face lined with weariness and his eyes cast downward. Something about him drew my attention, and I felt a nudge in my spirit to approach him. At first, I hesitated, unsure of what I might say, but the prompting was persistent. "Excuse me," I said gently as I approached his table. "I don't mean to intrude, but is everything all right?" Elias looked up, startled, and for a moment, I thought he might dismiss me. But then his expression softened, and he gestured for me to sit. "I don't know why I'm telling you this," he began hesitantly, "but I feel like my life is falling apart. I've lost my job, my family barely speaks to me, and I don't even know if I believe in God anymore." His words were raw, filled with pain and vulnerability. I listened intently, offering no interruptions, no judgments. When he had finished, I shared a bit of my own story, not as a solution to his problems, but as a way of letting him know that he was not alone, that there was hope even in the darkest moments. I told him about the love of Jesus, a love that had found me when I least expected it and had carried me through my own doubts and fears. We talked for hours, and by the time we parted ways, Elias looked lighter, as though a small weight had been lifted. "Thank you," he said simply. "I don't know what's next for me, but you've given me something to hold on to." That encounter stayed with me, not because of anything I had done, but because of what Jesus had done through me. It was a reminder that sometimes all it takes is a moment of connection, a willingness to step out of our comfort zones, to make a difference in someone's life. And in those moments, I feel closest to the mission Jesus has entrusted to me. As my journey continues, I've come to realize that the story of my encounter with Jesus is not just about what happened to me, it's about what is happening through me. Each day brings new opportunities to share His love, whether through a conversation, a kind gesture, or simply being present for someone who is hurting. These moments are not always grand or dramatic, but they are sacred, for they are the building blocks of a life lived in service to God. I've also learned the importance of humility in this work. There are times when I am reminded of my own limitations, my own flaws and weaknesses. But rather than letting these moments discourage me, I see them as opportunities to rely more fully on Jesus. His strength is made perfect in my weakness, and it is through Him that I am able to do what I could never do on my own. This realization has freed me from the need to have all the answers, to be perfect or infallible. Instead, I am simply a vessel, allowing His love to flow through me. One of the most beautiful aspects of this journey has been witnessing the ripple effect of love. When we show kindness, compassion, and understanding, it inspires others to do the same. I've seen this truth play out time and time again, whether in a small act of forgiveness or a large-scale effort to bring communities together. Love is contagious, and it has the power to heal wounds that seem impossible to mend. A particularly moving example of this occurred during an interfaith dialogue I was part of. The event brought together leaders and members of different religious communities, many of whom had long histories of mistrust and conflict. As we sat in a circle, sharing our perspectives and experiences, something incredible began to happen. Walls that had stood for generations began to crumble, replaced by a genuine desire to understand and connect. By the end of the evening, people who had entered the room as strangers, or even adversaries, were embracing one another, united by the shared humanity that transcends our differences. Moments like these fill me with hope, even in the face of the challenges and divisions that still exist in the world. They remind me that no matter how dark things may seem, the light of love and grace is always stronger. It is a light that shines in the hearts of those who are willing to open themselves to it, and it is a light that can never be extinguished. As I look to the future, I am filled with a sense of anticipation. There is so much work to be done, so many lives to touch, so many stories to hear and share. I do not know where this journey will take me next, but I trust in the one who leads me. Each step is a step of faith, and each moment is an opportunity to reflect the love of Jesus in a world that so desperately needs it. To those who may be reading this, I want to leave you with a message of encouragement. No matter where you are in your journey, no matter what doubts or fears you carry, know that you are not alone. The love of Jesus is real, and it is for you. It is a love that meets you where you are, that sees you fully and loves you completely. It is a love that transforms, redeems, and restores. This is the truth that has changed my life, and it is a truth I will carry with me for as long as I live. It is a truth that calls me to love without condition, to serve without expectation, and to walk forward in faith, knowing that I am never alone. And so, with every breath I take and every word I speak, I will continue to share this truth, trusting that it will find its way into the hearts of those who need it most. This is my mission, my purpose, and my greatest joy. The road ahead stretches endlessly, filled with uncertainty but also infinite possibility. Each step I take is another chapter in the story that God is writing through me, and though I cannot always see the destination, I trust the one who guides my path. This trust has become the foundation of my life, a constant reminder that, even in moments of doubt or fear, I am held by a love far greater than anything I could ever comprehend. One of the most significant lessons I've learned on this journey is that faith is not a static state, but a dynamic, ever-unfolding relationship. It is not about reaching a point of certainty and staying there. It is about continually seeking, growing, and surrendering. This realization has freed me from the need to have all the answers or to present myself as someone who has it all figured out. Instead, I embrace the beauty of being a work in progress, knowing that God is constantly shaping and refining me. This perspective has also changed the way I view challenges and setbacks. Where I once might have seen them as obstacles or failures, I now see them as opportunities for growth and dependence on God. One such moment came not long ago when I faced a particularly harsh wave of criticism from members of my former community. A group of individuals organized a public campaign against me, accusing me of dishonesty and betrayal. Their words were cruel and deeply personal, and for a time, I found myself overwhelmed by the weight of their condemnation. In my despair, I turned to prayer, pouring out my heart to Jesus and asking for His guidance. As I prayed, I felt a sense of peace wash over me, a gentle reminder that my worth is not determined by the opinions of others, but by the love of God. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Jesus' words from Matthew 5 verse 11 echoed in my mind. These words gave me the strength to persevere, to continue sharing my story and living out my faith, even in the face of opposition. Over time, I came to see that even this painful experience had a purpose. It forced me to confront my own fears and insecurities, to let go of my need for approval, and to anchor myself more firmly in God's truth. It also deepened my compassion for those who opposed me, reminding me that their anger and resistance often stemmed from fear, pain, or misunderstanding. This realization allowed me to respond not with bitterness, but with love, praying for their hearts to be softened and their burdens to be lifted. Through all of this, I have discovered a profound sense of joy that transcends circumstances. It is a joy rooted not in fleeting happiness or external validation, but in the unshakable knowledge of God's presence and love. This joy has become my strength, sustaining me in moments of difficulty and propelling me forward in my mission. It is a gift I wish for everyone to experience, and it is the driving force behind everything I do. As my story continues to reach new audiences, I am constantly amazed by the ways in which God works through even the smallest of actions. A kind word, a listening ear, a simple gesture of love, these are the seeds that can grow into something far greater than we could ever imagine. I have seen lives change through these seemingly ordinary moments, and each time, I am reminded of the power of grace. One of the most moving experiences of this journey occurred during a visit to a refugee camp. The people I met there had endured unimaginable hardships, war, displacement, loss, and yet, they carried a resilience and hope that left me in awe. As I sat with them, listening to their stories and sharing my own, I felt the presence of God in a way I could not describe. Despite the language barriers and cultural differences, there was a sense of connection, a reminder that we are all part of the same human family. One young woman, Amina, shared her story with me. She had lost her parents in the conflict and was now caring for her younger siblings. "I don't know how I keep going," she admitted, her voice trembling. "Sometimes it feels like I'm carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders." I took her hands in mine and looked into her tear-filled eyes. "Amina," I said, "you are not alone. God sees you, He knows your pain, and He loves you more than you can imagine. His strength is made perfect in our weakness, and He will carry you through this." Her tears spilled over, but she nodded, a flicker of hope lighting her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "I needed to hear that." Moments like these remind me why I do what I do. They are a testament to the fact that God's love knows no boundaries, no borders, no limitations. It is a love that reaches into the darkest corners of our lives, bringing light and healing where it is needed most. As I continue this journey, I am increasingly aware of the interconnectedness of our stories. Each person I meet, each conversation I have, each heart I touch, they are all threads in the tapestry of God's greater plan. My role is not to control or dictate how these threads come together, but to trust in the Master Weaver who is orchestrating something far beyond my understanding. Looking ahead, I feel a renewed sense of purpose and determination. There are still so many people who need to hear the message of Jesus' love, so many lives that can be transformed by His grace. I want to continue building bridges, fostering understanding, and shining His light in every corner of the world. Whether it's through speaking engagements, one-on-one conversations, or acts of service, I am committed to being a vessel for His love. To anyone reading this, I want you to know that your story matters. No matter where you are in your journey, no matter what struggles or doubts you face, you are deeply loved by God. His love is not something you have to earn or deserve, it is a gift, freely given. All you have to do is open your heart and receive it. This is the message that has changed my life, and it is the message I will carry with me for as long as I live. It is a message of hope, of redemption, of a love that never fails. And it is a message that I believe has the power to change the world, one heart at a time. As I move forward, I do so with a heart full of gratitude for the journey I have been on, for the people I have met, and for the God who walks beside me every step of the way. This is not the end of my story, it is only the beginning. And I cannot wait to see what God has in store for the chapters yet to come. As I press forward, I am constantly reminded that every step of my journey is an act of faith. There are still days when doubts creep in, when the weight of the mission feels too heavy, and when the rejection of those I once called family and friends stings more deeply than I care to admit. But in those moments, I hear the quiet whisper of Jesus in my heart, "Do not be afraid, for I am with you always." Those words are my anchor, the steadying force that keeps me grounded in a world that often feels uncertain. One of the most profound truths I've come to embrace is that my life is no longer my own. Each moment, each interaction, each opportunity is a gift from God, and I am merely a steward of His grace. This has transformed the way I approach every aspect of my life, from my relationships to my work to the way I spend my time. I no longer measure success by worldly standards of achievement or recognition. Instead, I measure it by the love I give, the lives I touch, and the faithfulness with which I carry out the mission Jesus has entrusted to me. Recently, I had the opportunity to visit a remote village, far from the cities and towns where I normally speak. The people there lived simple lives, untouched by much of the modern world, yet their hearts were open and eager to receive what I had to share. I spent days with them, praying, listening, and sharing the story of my encounter with Jesus. What struck me most was their humility and their hunger for truth. Despite the hardships they faced, poverty, illness, and isolation, they radiated a quiet strength that could only come from a deep reliance on God. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the village gathered around a small fire, an elderly man named Yusuf approached me. His withered face bore the marks of a life filled with both struggle and wisdom, and his eyes held a depth that spoke of years of reflection. "Tell me," he said, his voice trembling with emotion, "how can I be sure that this Jesus you speak of truly loves me? I am old, my life is nearly over, and I have made many mistakes. How could someone so wholly care for someone like me?" I felt a lump rise in my throat as I looked at him. "Yusuf," I said, placing a hand on his shoulder, "Jesus' love is not based on what we have done or failed to do. It is not something you can earn or lose. It is a gift, freely given, because you are His beloved child. He knows every part of you, your joys, your sorrows, your mistakes, and He still loves you completely. All He asks is that you open your heart to Him and trust in His grace." Tears welled up in Yusuf's eyes as he nodded slowly. "Then I will trust," he said simply. "I will trust." That moment will stay with me forever, not because of anything I said, but because of the way God's love shone through in a place so far removed from where my journey began. It was a reminder that His grace knows no boundaries, no limits. It reaches every heart that is willing to receive it, no matter how broken or weary. As I left the village, I couldn't help but reflect on how far God has brought me. There was a time when I believed that my faith was confined to the walls of a mosque, that my purpose was to serve only those who shared my beliefs. But Jesus has shown me a different way, a way that transcends religion, culture, and geography. He has called me to be a bridge, a light, and a messenger of His love to all people, no matter where they come from or what they believe. This calling has not been without its challenges. There are still those who question my motives, who accuse me of abandoning my heritage or seeking personal gain. These criticisms hurt, but they also remind me of the price of following Jesus. He himself faced rejection, ridicule, and persecution, and he warned us that we would face the same. Yet he also promised that his grace would be sufficient, that his power would be made perfect in our weakness. And so, I press on, not in my own strength, but in his. One of the most surprising fruits of this journey has been the way it has deepened my understanding of prayer. Prayer is no longer just a ritual or a duty for me, it is a lifeline, a constant conversation with the one who knows me better than I know myself. In prayer, I find strength when I feel weak, clarity when I feel confused, and peace when I feel overwhelmed. It is in these moments of quiet communion with Jesus that I am reminded of why I do what I do. It is not for recognition, for approval, or even for results. It is for Him, for His glory, and for the joy of knowing that I am walking in obedience to His call. Another unexpected gift has been the community of believers who have embraced me with open arms. Though I once feared that my transformation would leave me isolated, I have found new brothers and sisters in Christ who have supported me, encouraged me, and walked alongside me in this journey. Their love and fellowship have been a source of strength, reminding me that I am never truly alone. Together, we are part of something much greater than ourselves, a global family united by the love of Jesus. As I look to the future, I am filled with both excitement and a sense of responsibility. There is so much work to be done, so many lives to touch, so many hearts to reach. I know that the road ahead will not always be easy, but I also know that I do not walk it alone. Jesus goes before me, preparing the way, and His Spirit dwells within me, giving me the courage and wisdom to carry out His mission. To anyone reading this, I want to leave you with a simple but powerful truth: you are loved. No matter where you are in your journey, no matter what burdens you carry, no matter what mistakes you've made, you are deeply, unconditionally, and eternally loved by God. His love is not something you have to earn or deserve, it is a gift, freely given. All you have to do is open your heart and receive it. This is the message that has changed my life, and it is the message I will continue to carry with me for as long as I live. It is a message of hope, of redemption, and of a love that knows no bounds. And it is a message that I believe has the power to change the world, one heart at a time. With every step I take, every word I speak, and every life I touch, I am reminded of the incredible privilege it is to be a part of God's work. This is not just my story, it is His story, written through me and through each of us who are willing to say yes to His call. And for that, I will forever be grateful. As the years passed, I came to understand that my journey was not about reaching a destination, but about embracing the process of transformation, both in my own heart and in the lives of those I encountered. Each moment, whether joyful or challenging, was an invitation to lean deeper into the love and grace of Jesus, to trust Him more fully, and to let His light shine through me. There came a day when I stood before a crowd that had gathered for what I knew would be one of my last public addresses. My body, though still strong in spirit, had begun to bear the marks of age and years of travel. The road had been long, and while my heart was still aflame with passion for sharing the message of Jesus' love, I felt a quiet stirring within me, a sense that my season of public ministry was drawing to a close. The gathering was held in a modest hall, filled with people from all walks of life. Some were familiar faces, friends and fellow believers who had journeyed with me over the years. Others were strangers, drawn by curiosity or a desire for hope. As I looked out at the crowd, I felt a deep and abiding peace. This was not an ending but a continuation of the work God had begun in me and through me. I spoke from my heart, recounting the story that had shaped my life, the explosion, the encounter with Jesus, and the transformation that followed. But this time, I focused less on the details of my own journey and more on what I had learned along the way. The greatest truth I have discovered, I said, my voice steady and clear, is that we are all loved beyond measure by a God who sees us, who knows us, and who longs to be in relationship with us. That love is not something we can earn or lose, it is a gift, freely given. And it is a gift meant to be shared. As I spoke, I saw tears in the eyes of some and quiet reflection in the faces of others. I knew that my words were not my own, they were the words God had placed on my heart to share. And as I finished, I felt a sense of release, as though I had poured out everything I had been given to give. The days that followed were quieter, filled with moments of prayer, reflection, and gratitude. I spent more time with loved ones, cherishing the relationships that had sustained me through the years. I also found joy in mentoring younger leaders, passing on the lessons I had learned and encouraging them to carry the message of Jesus' love into the next generation. It was a reminder that the work of God is never finished. It continues in the lives of those who are willing to say yes to His call. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, casting a golden glow across the sky, I sat alone in prayer. The stillness of the moment was profound, and I felt the presence of Jesus as clearly as I had on that fateful day so many years ago. "Well done, my good and faithful servant," I heard Him say, not in an audible voice, but in the depths of my soul. Tears streamed down my face as I whispered, "Thank you, Lord, for choosing me, for loving me, and for walking with me every step of the way." In that moment, I knew that my story was not about me, it was about Him. It was about the love that had transformed my life and the lives of so many others. It was about the grace that had carried me through every trial, every joy, and every moment in between. And it was about the promise that His love would continue to shine, long after my earthly journey had come to an end. Not long after, I quietly passed into eternity, surrounded by loved ones who prayed and sang hymns of praise. My story had reached its earthly conclusion, but the seeds that had been planted continued to grow. The message of Jesus' love and grace lived on in the hearts of those I had touched, spreading like ripples in a vast and endless sea. And so, my journey ended as it had begun, with the love of Jesus at the center. A love that calls us, transforms us, and sends us out into the world to be His hands and feet. A love that never fails, never ends, and never lets us go. This is my story, but it is also your story. It is the story of a Savior who meets us where we are, who walks with us through every trial, and who invites us into a life of purpose, peace, and eternal hope. And though my voice may no longer be heard, the message remains: you are loved. Always and forever, you are loved.